In this video, I want to talk about buying comic books online and what questions you should ask the seller before buying them, especially if you don't know the seller or if this is your first time buying from them. Stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Justin here, aka No Good Comics, and before I get into the topic today, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and of course, if you can hit that little bell, I would really appreciate that as well. So before I get into the topic that I just talked about in the beginning of this video, I do want to do a quick little opening up here of mail call. It's not a comic book, but it is comic related, so gonna cut this bad boy open real quick and see what we got. All right, guys, so this package is from New York City Comic Con, the actual company that hosts the Comic Cons. And I ordered this shirt back at the end of March. This is right around the time businesses started to shut down because of COVID-19. They had a deal where they were doing everything for $5 shipping. And they also had discounts on their shirts. So I had to buy a shirt. This one is so cool. It is from the MCU. It's from the final movie Endgame. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. This is the quote, "I love you 3000." And yeah, you guys know what this is from. If you've seen the movies, highly recommend checking that out. But just had to get this really nice quality. I'll put a link down at the bottom below if you guys want to take a look and see what some of the other shirts that they have. But yeah, this is awesome. Cannot wait to put this bad boy on. And yeah, just wanted to open that up. So let's get into the video. Okay, so let's get into the topic, which I was just mentioning earlier, and that is when you're buying comic books online, what are some of the questions you should be asking? And especially when it's a seller that you don't know, you don't trust them, you're not familiar with them, or whatever the case may be. Now, one of the reasons I made this channel was, again, not just to show off things that I bought or things that came in the mail or my comic book collection, although that was one big part of it. The other thing is I wanted to start providing value to those, especially that are starting to get into the comic book collecting hobby or industry. I feel that this hobby can certainly be looked at as kind of overwhelming at first, especially asking questions like, where do I start? Or just, where do I buy comics from? Things like that. So I definitely want to bring this to a focused point where anyone that's newer to comics or just newer to buying comic books online, definitely take some of these tips into consideration. And honestly, even if you're not new to comics, I mean, I'm into comics for about 2 years now where I'm like really buying comic books and I'm still learning stuff every day. So I'm sure there's still room for growth. No one's a professional when it comes to this hobby. So there's always a little bit of room to learn no matter what part of the hobby that you're in or how long you've been in it. So take this advice for what it is. Take it for, again, just kind of me talking from my experience. You, at the end of the day, want to buy things the way you want to buy things. You are more than welcome to do so in the way that you see fit. I'm just trying to provide a little bit of value in terms of maybe some of the mistakes that I've made or some of the mistakes I've seen other people make so that hopefully you don't run into those same problems. With that being said, there's a few things that I want to talk about, and really this goes towards just protecting yourself as a buyer, and especially in today's day where everybody's buying off like platforms like Instagram and Facebook, more so than just eBay. Now, of course, eBay's a really, obviously a big app that a lot of people like to use to buy comic books online. And let me note, I am talking about physical comic books, not digital comic books. So yeah, with things like eBay, Facebook, Instagram, everybody's doing auctions now. They're doing claim sales, things of that nature. So if you've discovered comic books, especially through Facebook groups or through Instagram accounts, you might have started to see this. A lot of people starting to sell comic books in these certain ways. And one of the biggest questions is, well, I don't know these people. How do I trust them? Or how do I know it's safe? Or how do I know that they're not just going to run away with my money, right? So there's a few things, and these are the things that I want to go over in terms of some of the questions that you should be asking these sellers. And let me also just start by saying that when it comes to asking questions, do not be afraid to ask seller questions. And I say that, and I really put a stamp on that because I totally am one of those people who don't want to be an inconvenience to people, right? I feel like, oh man, if I ask for more photos, like they're going to get annoyed with me, or, if I ask them, who have they sold to in the past, are there references, that they're going to take it as an insult of some sort. No, don't. Trust me, when you're the one that's on the side that's spending the money, that's actually having to send the money over, you have a lot riding on that action right there. So you want to be able to be as comfortable as possible when it comes to buying stuff, especially if you're spending a lot of money. I mean, some of these books are $500, $600, $1,000, $10,000, you name it, depending on what you're trying to go after. So don't hesitate on feeling bad about asking questions. So with that being said, let's jump into the first question. So the first question that you should be asking is, does this seller have some sort of reference that I can talk to? Some sort of testimonial, some sort of rating? Now, in terms of eBay, of course, there is a star rating, where you can actually rate certain sellers and buyers. And that's a quick and easy way where you can just scroll down and take a look at the seller's information in terms of, are they 5 stars? Do they have 100% rating? Are they highly recommended? Have there been people who have said negative things about them, positive things about them? What are the reviews that people are leaving, right? And you can get a lot of answers right there. But for those who are buying from Instagram or Facebook or some other apps that may not have the rating systems, the only other main way that you should really go about it is reaching out to the seller themselves and saying, hey, look, I'm really interested in buying some books from you. You have some things that I'm starting to look into and I'm interested in learning more about. But before I do, of course, I'm not familiar with you or I've never bought from you before. So would you mind sending me some references that you have of happy customers or people that have relied on you to come through with their purchases? And I will tell you right now, if they're an honest seller, if they're a good seller, and if they're true to like what they do, then they will have no problem giving you references. And in fact, they will gladly share. They should be sharing, a bunch of references with you. There shouldn't be a hesitation about it, really. So, and then here's the other thing: if they are having a hesitation, or if they get upset with you, or if they refuse to give you references, that should be a red flag right there. In which case, I wouldn't do business with them. So that's the first big one, right? Is the obvious. Number one, if you can check the eBay rates, check the reviews that people have left. But if it's not a platform that has reviews, simply just message them, DM them, and ask them the questions. Hey, do you have some people that I could reach out to just kind of confirm that you're legit, or that these things are safe, or I'm new. You could even just tell them, hey, look, I'm new to buying comics online. I'm really not looking to get screwed by anybody. I've heard some bad stories. Wondering if you could give me some references, of customers that you sold to. So again, they should have no problem doing that whatsoever if they're an honest seller. Tip number 2, ask for photos. And I mean like obnoxious photos if you need them. I will ask for the front and back, and then I will ask for the inside where the creases of the book, like the middle, the inside of the where the staples show. And then I will check the back of the front cover and the back of the back cover, or the inside of the cover. Those are the main ones for me personally. And then also, I occasionally would like to see, if I see something that's questionable, I will ask for more photos. For example, I like to see photos that are laying like this on a table or desk, so that I could kind of see, of course, high res photos that you could zoom into. So you can kind of see if there's any waviness. And I'm just doing this as an example. I would want them to take the bag off. Just holding this up as an example, but this is kind of the angle that I would occasionally ask for as well. Not just a straight up and top to bottom of seeing the whole front or the back, but also like some side angles. And then of course, another key section is being able to do corners. And the spine, right? The spine's a big part as well. But the point of all this is, don't be afraid to ask questions, or don't be afraid to ask for photos when it comes to buying from new sellers or sellers that you're not familiar with. There are a lot of people that just pull the trigger on whether it's again in a live feed, like an auction that's going on live, or just people that posted stuff on their Instagram account. I guess I'm really leaning a little more towards Instagram and Facebook, these type of things. Although even for eBay, you can message the eBay seller and ask them for more photos. Absolutely. Question number 3, always ask if the book is complete. And by that, I mean obvious stuff in terms of like, is there a page missing? Is there an ad that's cut out? Could there be a stapler missing? Could there be some sort of restoration that was built into it? You want to consider some of this stuff. Oh, and also color touch. These are some big things that I know for me as a collector, I didn't consider for a long time. And I more recently started to consider this stuff because I started to hear other buyers that have started to run into these problems. Perfect example, a friend of mine just told me that he had at one point purchased a pretty big book that he bought raw, right, not graded, and he sent that into CGC, and months later it came back. There was some color touch, I think, that there was some restoration to it. So that was a disaster. He never checked for it, never thought to check for it. The seller never said anything about it. And again, I don't know if that's on the seller's point or not. I mean, here's the thing. Some sellers might see the problems and not say anything. That's screwed up, right? Or there are some sellers who just don't know to look for certain things like that, or they're not as educated enough to be aware of something like that, and they're just selling books out of just honesty and being genuine about it, right? They're just like, hey, I bought this book, I've owned it for a long time, I never considered anyone ever touching it or messing with it in any way, so I thought it was safe and I just sold it, right? So that certainly could happen. Now, I've heard also stories of people reaching out to the sellers, trying to get their money back, trying to resolve it in other ways. And either way, whether you can resolve it or not, it's certainly a large headache. So these are questions you want to ask beforehand to confirm with the seller. Hey, has this thing been, touched in any sort of way with color touch or new staples? Is it missing certain pages? Can you give me a page count? Also, you can ask, I know certain books from the 70s especially have certain stamps inside, the Marvel stamps, right? You want to confirm if that's there or not. So you want to do some research. And I guess ultimately that's one of the biggest things, right? When you're buying comic books online or just buying comic books in general, you always want to you always want to do research before you just bite the bullet and spend $500 or whatever you're spending. So, this is just something to keep in mind. All right, guys, number 4, my final tip is to confirm with the seller what their shipping methods are. In other words, ask them, hey, when you ship this thing, can you please make sure that it's safe? How do you ship your comic books? And have them actually explain that to you, because I've seen some terrible, terrible incidences where people have bought from eBay or other places, and it's come with like 2 flimsy pieces of cardboard or no cardboard. And it's literally just in a folder, like a USPS like mailer folder, and it got bent and destroyed. And by the time it gets there, the comic book is completely destroyed and not worth anywhere near whatever they paid for it. So I would say to them, can you just confirm what the way that you ship them? Do you ship with, first, do you use UPS? Do you use FedEx? Do you use the post office, USPS? Get the kind of ratings, whether it's flat rate shipping or things like that, to get an idea of what this stuff comes, how this stuff's going to be showing up at your door. And then secondly, ask them what do they use to protect it? Do they use bubble wrap of some sort? Do they tape a bunch of cardboard around it? Do you use a lot of cardboard, a little bit of cardboard? What are you putting the cardboard in? What else do you ensure to make sure that, that this thing's not going to go south and get destroyed, right? So I would totally ask them for the advice of, have them explain to you, how do you ship these things? What are you putting them in? I just want to make sure that, this is something legitimately going to be protected, because I'll tell you right now, USPS, UPS and FedEx and any other mailing service that you might use, a lot of the people, a lot of the mail just gets thrown around, whether it's by accident or whatever, and bad things happen. Bad things happen, and I've certainly seen it. I've seen even like the package, it was probably fine all the way up until it got to the mailbox, and then I've seen people take pictures of their mailbox where it's been like jammed into the actual mailbox and like bent, or has like a curve in it, and it's just, it's a disaster. So highly recommend reaching out to the seller. And because you don't know, also maybe the seller is new to actually shipping. Maybe this is their first time shipping and they've never really considered it before. They just thought, well, I want to get rid of some books, and it seems like you're interested, so sure, I'll just throw it in this envelope and I'll write the word fragile on it and it should be fine. Not true. The word fragile, if anything, I would say I'm not a fan of writing the word fragile on my boxes. I just feel like it gives like an incentive for people that are handling this stuff to kind of be a little more rough with it, even though that doesn't make any sense, and you would think that they would respect the word fragile. But like I said, I've seen things with the word fragile on it be completely destroyed anyways. And I do feel that the people handling these packages are not taking the time to really say, oh, this person wants me to be fragile with this package, let me go ahead and be fragile then. They're just trying to get their job, do their job, and do it the best that they can. So, they're not taking time to read little notes that you're writing on the package. So I would just say, reach out to them and say, look, can you just make sure that you add couple extra layers of thicker cardboard especially if you're just buying like one comic book. You know, wrap it up in proper bubble wrap or something else that you use. You know, I'm not really a fan of bubble wrap, but I've seen it be used in a way with, you know, using it with cardboard, so it can work. There's plenty of YouTube videos, I'm sure, too, so feel free to go YouTube that on how to properly ship comic books if you want to learn that. Anyways, getting sidetracked. But that's number 4. Reach out to the seller and say, hey, can you give me an idea of how you actually ship your books? I just want to make sure that we're on the same page and that there's no mistakes, or that, you know, I can sleep better at night, right? That's basically what you're doing when you're ensuring that the book's okay. So those are my 4 tips that I'm leaving with you today. There are plenty more. And in fact, if you have more that you'd like to add, leave it in the comment section below, because I'd love to chime in and talk with you guys and try to see what other value that's being provided amongst the community. Again, as I mentioned before, I started this channel. One of the reasons was to be able to help people, especially newer readers or people that are just starting to approach the hobby now, that are not so familiar with certain things. I know some people can look at this hobby, be very intimidated, and not want to ask certain questions because they don't want to be embarrassed. I would say don't hold back, ask questions, you know, put it out there. And that's why I wanted to make these videos, because I know that when I first started, I would love to see videos like this. And I know there are other people that are putting some videos out that are similar. I just wanted to kind of do my part in giving back to what I've learned so far, and also what I've talked to other people about so far in this community. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the video. If you know anybody that's new to buying online, or if they're just new to comic books in general, feel free to share this video with them. I would really appreciate it. And again, if you have any extra tips, leave in the comment section below, because I know there's way more questions that could be asked of sellers other than just these 4. I just wanted to cover these 4 as a beginner, as kind of a start off to you know, more videos that I'll be doing at some other point. So anyways, thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.